Okay, call this meeting into order. First item on the meeting is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. What happened to the flagpole? It's shrunk.
The one I've had,
We used to have a taller one there.
that was
mine.
somebody else's.
Oh.
It actually wasn't mine, it was somebody that
You
loaned
read,
it
you,
to us.
okay, went back to,
Okay, next item is the roll call.
Coe,
here,
O'Shea, here, Driscoll,
here,
McGregor,
here,
Mullally,
Here,
Young, here, Mack,
Here.
Klein, Care,
here.
Okay. Next one is the conflict of interest disclosure. If there is a conflict of interest, this is the time to state it with any of the items that are listed on the agenda. Oh, excuse me, approval of the agenda. That is the next item, I apologize. The board cannot take official action on any item that is not on the agenda.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Driscoll. Is there a second?
second.
Seconded by Bochet. Okay. Discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a minor one on item 10 where it says ECC. I would like that spelled out as Erosion Control Committee.
Okay. Are you requesting a friendly amendment if the person that made the motion and the second agree
Sure,
to
yeah.
that?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
So question,
Yep.
is that a rule or something? No
Well,
acronyms?
generally, if you have an acronym and the public has access to it, you want it defined.
Any other discussion on the item? Okay. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor of approval of the agenda state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, moving on to item 4, conflict of interest disclosure. If there is a conflict of interest on any of the items in the agenda, this is the time to state it. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to item 5, approval of the minutes from August 12th. As you can see in the packet, the minutes are presented. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Yes.
One addition, revision that I'd like to see made would be on page 6, under item number 20. I'd emailed this to Larry ahead of time, so following the statement that Koth asked about GIS files and inquiry regarding attorney, specific to the inquiry regarding the attorney, to add that wording that it was suggested that this could be done by Director McGregor, who said he could look into it.
We don't have a second yet.
So right now, the motion on the floor is McGregor
I'll
as
second
is,
that.
so second to the change. Okay. I mean, approval for the change, so the motion is now approval of the minutes with the, with the change into the minutes as stated by Director Driscoll. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Driscoll. Discussion on the item? Yes.
Could I speak on a different item?
If it's with the minutes, I believe that it is
I'm
open.
just wondering on agenda item 18, there's a motion and second, but they're blank. And the motion was withdrawn anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter, but I was just wondering if that was just an oversight there.
It was an official motion, but then during the discussion, it was withdrawn, so that's reflected here. That it came into the
His
meeting.
motion withdrawn by
It came into
Driscoll.
the meeting as a motion,
Okay,
but during discussion, then it was withdrawn.
'Cause of-
And that wording is in the two lines below the motion, towards the end of the
Right.
first line.
yeah. I just wasn't sure if there were, why that was omitted, but that's fine.
Any other discussion items on the approval of the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes, state by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same side. Okay. Item number 6, the treasurer's report. And that goes to our treasurer. So that's you, Ron.
Okay, the treasurer's report, all the items, the ledger, the project, and the project timeline are all on pages 16 through part of 10. Oh, wait a minute, excuse me, I'm reading something wrong here. So pages 7 through part of page 10. So the only, I guess, noteworthy thing I think that's worth examining, if you all, because you've all had a chance to look at this already, is on page 8, Larry is now displaying both the year-to-date, which is the far right column, and the expenditures from our last meeting to this meeting, which is the middle column. And so that's just another little embellishment, I guess, or new feature that's available to us in QuickBooks. So I think that's the only noteworthy thing there. As standard, it shows our bank balance there on the first page, on page 7, in the various accounts. It shows our activity in terms of expenditures on page 8. And then our projects list is on page 9 with the active projects in, I guess not all the active projects. Some of the active projects are in green. And then there's a timeline on page 10 that shows sort of the duration of many of these projects. In terms of when they started and when they're scheduled to be completed, or they end for the agreement that we have in place at this point in time. So I think the only thing that's really interesting to me is it's a new feature, is kind of our meeting-to-meeting expenditure account. And so the artifact in there is, it actually shows a negative balance down there in net operating income on page 8 toward the bottom. And that's just because of the way that money has gone in and come out during this 2-month period.
Okay. Is there approval for the treasurer's report?
Mr. Chairman, I assume these categories are just all part of the computer program we're using now for treasurer's reports.
I would believe so, yes.
Because I think the category of gross profit on, what is it, page 8, is kind of misleading. We're not certainly in the business to make a profit.
Well, that'd be a question we can ask of Larry, whether or not it's easy to change those
Yeah,
figures
if he could talk to the people.
net,
As of right
net
now,
income, or,
I have not seen anything where you can change those, but I'll look into it.
Check it out, because that's not at all what we do.
No, it isn't. It
Other than, I
reflects
guess-
the numbers, but it
I
isn't the
guess
right.
we're a government entity, so we could claim we're running it like a business.
Yeah.
So like, gross income,
Yeah, gross
Okay.
income would be fine.
yeah, okay, I have not seen any option to change the headings, only the
No,
content, but I'll look, maybe there's something in there.
seems like there should be a better template. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got a question on page 9. We've still got that Water Smart BOR Pactola Deerfield study of $100,000 that we're showing. It's about in the middle of the page, about 5 lines below the first green stripe of $100,000. And that's, it's carryover from the Bureau of Reclamation was going to originally charge us that as part of the agreement. But then they redid their economics on the agreement and left out that 100,000. I'm wondering, should we not show that anymore? Because that's not really a valid charge that they'll make to us as part of the project.
As I recall, we actually had, specific motion to include that in as part of a budget for that project. So we'd need a motion to remove it from our balance sheet now, given the fact that it's, not appropriate, I guess, so we could do that, so I think that'd be fine.
Are we not ever gonna get it? I mean, that's just,
It's
well,
incorporated into the overall grant.
okay.
At one time, we thought we were gonna have to budget separately, and we were gonna be paying the Bureau separately, and it was all a little bit of a mystery on how it was all gonna roll out, but now we have it underway. We're about a year into it, and the Bureau is paying the Bureau, at the regional level, I think, or the grant-making level, is actually paying the bill of the local, Bureau people when they bill towards this project. So we do not see any invoices associated with that, cost. So yeah, it would be appropriate to do that, but we'd probably need a motion, cause I do recall it was a board process to include it in our budget.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we remove from the report on page 19 the $100,000 Water Smart BOR Pactola Deerfield study line item. I guess it's 23010 BOR XX.
I'll second.
What, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got the right number,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. And so this motion is not to approve the treasurer's report, but just to remove.
Just to
remove
make
that
the
item.
change
Before
on
we do
this,
that,
Okay, and seconded
On this
by
project.
Care.
I second, yeah.
Discussion on the motion? Yes.
Oh, a question on how all this fits together. Does that mean our grant was essentially reduced by, or increased by that amount? Or how is everything gonna add up properly?
Yes,
Okay,
It
that's the
does,
short
yeah.
answer.
I'll
Yes.
take your word for it.
What they did was reduce the grant amount that they show, and then they
Okay, so-
increased our percentage that we would pay of that amount. So we're paying the same amount we originally had in the grant at the 25%, except now it's what, 38%?
Yeah, you had it figured out, like
Yeah.
Craig
So
did the
the
math.
grant is essentially assuming this number doesn't exist
Right,
right now.
The
yes.
grant, when we put this number in the budget, it was at a time when we didn't have a full understanding, and we didn't have any information from the Bureau on how they were gonna get paid. And so we put it in there to be sure we had a budgeted amount for
Yeah,
that
I
particular,
remember that.
okay. That did not come into being. So the grant is all inclusive, and
Okay.
we don't need this line item in our budget, basically.
Sounds good.
Who seconded?
I
Carrie?
did.
Kara.
Okay. Motion by McGregor, seconded by Care to remove the $100,000 from the project summary. Item 23_10_BORXX from the project summary budget All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, now back to the original,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
just another item for clarity on the report in the last section on the 2021 projects.
okay,
Shouldn't the Green Valley Sanitary District be green? I mean, that is pending. It's still alive. Unpaid may or may not ever come to fruition, but
yeah,
I
That
think
green
the
was
thing
there.
to do is to eliminate the green shading, because there are other active projects.
that's an
Once you
active project still.
There are other active projects that aren't green shaded.
Right?
So I think the green shading has just identified the fact that we have those 4 erosion projects.
Yeah.
And that's what they're all about, is they're the erosion projects. But the other projects that are still active are like the USGS, the Water Smart grant, we're holding money for Green Valley, so. We could either eliminate the shading or leave it there, they're just erosion projects, but there are other active projects that are reflected in that table, that are not shaded in any
Yeah,
way.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
the green, that was me, and that was put in there because that particular meeting, we were discussing whether we wanted to continue, zero these out or not. So they were highlighted just for that discussion. It had nothing to do with
Well, then,
really the status of the project.
would it be
per se.
acceptable just to remove that shading then?
Yeah.
And then should we adjust the bottom line total project obligations by 100,000?
Yep. It goes along with that
Yeah.
removal.
So I don't know if we want to include that in your motion or,
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we remove the green shading from those 4 erosion control projects, since it's, what it was to signify from a past meeting has long been, that has long been satisfied. And also in furtherance of our previous motion, that the bottom line on total project obligations be reduced by $100,000.
Do we actually need to vote on things like this, or can't we just
Apparently so.
have a
Well, that's a-
consensus that we needed to
I'll leave
vote?
that to a ruling by the chair.
Chair believes that if it's all friendly and nobody has any objections, that we can just do that, since it is just more of a math item, unless there is a director that has a concern and would like a vote on it.
It sounded like on the reclamation project, we needed a vote, but these others,
we are voting to approve the treasurer's report,
Okay.
yep.
so.
So could the approval of the treasurer's report just have that language in it? Would that be an acceptable?
I think so.
Okay.
Just a random question. I know that when I build spreadsheets and I have a formula issue, I get that little red dot in the corner. And I noticed that on a couple of items, and I'm wondering if that's a, some sort of a formula error in the program. You can see it on, about 3/4 of the page down. It looks like the, Star Village RC. There's a formula error, and then there's also one, 3rd line down on blue towards the bottom. And it looks like, SDSMT,
Impervious?
Impervious
areas.
I would say right now, it doesn't affect what the budget.
No, I'm just wondering if there's some sort of a glitch somewhere that we need to investigate.
I'll look at it, but my
Okay.
guess is that it's gonna say something like the referral is, it's looking at somewhere else.
Yeah,
instead of
cool,
where it's being
cool.
pointed to. So usually you can go in and just check that and say, yes, do what this is saying, and
Mr.
I
Chair,
haven't even noticed that.
I guess I'm just thinking here, do you think that's a formula error, or could that, wonder if I put a comment on some of these, that might be a comment,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's signifying something.
yeah.
Yes, Director Driscoll?
Under our 2022 projects, the third one down is the Rapid Creek Restoration Pennington Conservation District. Under the items from directors at the last meeting, Director Mullally had suggested dropping that, and I think we've determined it could be dropped. Do we want to try to get that tidied up before our next meeting also?
we can look into that and have that. Do you want it changed now on the,
No,
okay,
but we've been carrying it along. We have ascertained that, you know, there is no longer a possibility that we would have additional requests for funds. They, you know, their project will continue on for some time, but the window for applications has closed. And, you know, so we,
okay.
The minutes on that item says that you requested, or that Ron requested of you to send a letter to Pennington Conservation District requesting their intentions for future projects. And then we would potentially remove that
Okay,
42,500.
I'll make sure of that follow-up on that one. Yeah, I'll get that taken care of by next meeting. My apologies on that. Okay, do we have an approval of the treasurer's report?
It is McGregor, Mr. Chair, is McGregor's motion, also motion to approve the treasurer's report, or take care of this first? Shouldn't we vote on this motion number 3 and then vote to approve the treasurer's report?
I think that
Oh,
we've approved the removal of the 100,000.
okay.
So,
We're at the report now.
we're at
Okay.
the approval of the report with the necessary changes on the report, which include the green and moving that total project obligations number to $528,028.89.
Okay,
Is it, that is my understanding. Yes, Director
Yeah, so
Milano.
shouldn't that be in the motion then? Approve the treasurer's report with the following changes?
That can be, or I can approve as the chair state that the changes are fine if everyone agrees, and we can approve the treasurer's report. It is up to the board if they want that in the motion.
Okay,
Well, you already voted on motion 3.
okay. So,
Okay.
So 3A, now renumbered, would be the approval of the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Okay, approval by, Young, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Care. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving on to item 7, annual review of open meetings law for 2025, and that is admin.
Okay, so, statute 1-25-13, annual review of open meeting laws acknowledgement reads, any agency is defined in code 1-26-1 or political subdivisions of the state that is required to provide public notice of its meetings pursuant to code 1-25-1.1 or 1-25-1.3 must annually review the following during any official meeting of the agency or subdivision. 1, the explanation of the open meeting laws of this state published by the Attorney General pursuant to code 1-11-1, and 2, any other material pertaining to the open meeting laws of this state provided by the Attorney General. The agency or subdivision must include in the minutes of the official meeting an acknowledgement that the review was completed. So I attached the version of the state Guide to South Dakota's Open Meeting Laws Revised 2025, and in compliance with this, that we have an explanation of the open meeting laws of the state published by the Attorney General. On pages 6, 7, and 8 of that little brochure are the actual laws, and they are subdivided 1-25-1, and then 1.1, 1.2, etc. And so I've highlighted, I don't know how this has been handled in the past, but I've highlighted, instead of reading all of these, just highlighted things that pertain to how we handle business. The first one, open meetings, is an official meeting of a public body that's open to the public, unless a specific law is cited by the public body to close the official meeting, and that is allowed under holding an executive session where the public would be removed for a bit. Okay, so the public, down at the third paragraph or fourth paragraph, the public body shall reserve at every official meeting a period for public comments. That's one of the requirements of open meeting law, that we have to reserve a time for public comment. Okay, 125, 1.1, public notice of political subdivision says that we need to provide public notice with proposed agenda that's visible, readable, and accessible for at least an entire continuous 24 hours immediately preceding any official meeting. And that is completed by posting the one-page agenda on the window to the garage, which is our official place of business. And then the only requirement is that the agenda shall include the date, time, and location of the meeting. So in reality, there are three requirements in here that we have to complete for a meeting, and one is the posting of the agenda has to have the date, time, and location of the meeting, and the agenda has to have an official time period for public comment. Public notice of the state is the next one. The state shall provide public notice of the meeting by posting a copy of the proposed agenda at the principal office of the board, commissioners, or department holding the meeting. That's what we do. Teleconferencing, 1-25, 1.1. Teleconference meeting is allowable. The member is deemed present if the member answers present to the roll call conducted by teleconference, which I assume Zoom and Teams and things also includes in that. Next section, 1-25-1.6, teleconference participation. At any official meeting conducted by teleconference, there shall be provided one or more places in which the public may listen to and participate in the teleconference meeting. So for example, last meeting, we had Director Koth on a phone, and we're doing it with Teams. No, Teams, not phone. With Teams, which would be a teleconferencing. And so public was able to listen in on that as well. The next section, 1-25-2, executive session. Executive sessions, closed meetings may be held for the sole purpose of, 1, discussing qualifications of any public officer or employee. 2, discussing the expulsion, suspension, or discipline of a person or an activity. 3, consulting with legal counsel. 4, preparing for contract negotiations. 5, discussing marketing or pricing strategies. 6, discussing information pertaining to the protection of public or private property. And then there's a whole list of things under there that qualifies for that. However, any official action concerning the matters pursuant to this section shall be made at an open official meeting. 1-25-6, duties of state's attorney. That is dealing with complaints in violation of 1-25, which would be somebody would make a complaint that these were not followed. 1-25-6.1, duties of state's attorney, county commission issues, which does not deal with us directly, I don't believe. 1-25-7, referral to OMC, Open Meetings Commission. And this is upon receiving a referral from the state's attorney or the Attorney General, the South Dakota Open Meetings Commission shall examine the complaint. So these last few 2 items have dealt with complaints about the conduct of the meeting that isn't pursuant to these rules. One 25 definitions. So an official meeting is any meeting of a quorum of the public body, in which official business or public body of that public body is disclosed or decided by the public body. And so directors, you are the public body by these terms. The second is a political subdivision, association, authority, board, municipality, commission, which is created by statute, ordinance, or resolution. That's a political subdivision. Political body is any political subdivision of the state, so that would be elected directorship. And then state is agency, board, or commission of, or department of the state, not including the legislature. And the last one under definitions is teleconference, which is an exchange of information by audio, video, or electronic media, including the internet. Okay, next section 1-25-13, annual review of open meeting laws. An agency is defined in section 1-26-1, or political subdivision of the state. And this just says that the annual review, that you must annually review the following during an official meeting. 1, the explanation of the open meeting laws, which is what I'm attempting now. And then 2, any other material pertaining to the open meeting laws. Must include in the minutes of the official meeting an acknowledgement that the review was completed. The next section, 1-27-1.16, meeting packets and materials. If any printed material relating to an agenda item of the meeting is prepared or distributed by or at the direction of the governing body, the governing body, it would be what we term the executive board. And this shall be distributed either by posting on the governing body's website, which we do, and or made available at the official business office, which we do, at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. If the material is not posted to the governing body's website, at least one copy of the printed material shall be available at the meeting, and I usually print out 3, which according to this we wouldn't need to do because we post to the website. So the requirement to have public copies here only hold if we do not place these materials on the website. Okay, the next section, 1-27-1.17, draft minutes. The unapproved draft minutes of any public meeting that are required to be kept by law shall be available for inspection by any person within 10 business days after the meeting. However, this section does not apply if an audio or video recording of the meeting is available to the public on the governing body's website within 5 business days after the meeting, which I have been posting the draft minutes and the audio the day after the meeting, so we read these. Section 127-1.18, working group reports. Any final recommendations, findings, or reports that result from a meeting of a committee, subcommittee, task force, or other working group which does not meet the definition of the political subdivision or public body pursuant to 125.1, which was the beginning of this, but was appointed by the governing body, shall be reported in an open meeting to the governing body or other working group, bunch of things. The governing body shall delay taking any official action on the recommendations, findings, or reports until the next meeting. Okay, so those are the main sections of this that I need to simply state in the minutes, I guess, that we did this. And so I'm just gonna put a time stamp here, just for fun. 3:23 to 3:34. Okay, so in pursuant of what we have just read here, we talked about this at the executive board meeting last week. And it's obvious, after reading this and seeing our website, that we go way above and beyond what is required by the state. I've looked at all the other water districts in the state and looked at their websites, and the only things they post on their website pursuant to the public meetings is the agenda and the minutes. And no packet, no audio, video. I had contacted Jay Gilbertson at East Dakota, and because we were thinking about updating this sound system, and which is, and it works, but it works, that's about all you can be said. And I said, what do you use to record? And he was like, I was talking to him on the phone, he was kind of silent. He goes, well, we don't record. And I thought everybody record the meetings, so we don't have to record the meetings. The only time you'd have to record the meetings is if you can't get your minutes posted within that 10-day period after the meeting. So we're meeting the requirements on here, which simply require that an agenda is posted 24 hours prior to the meeting, that it has the date, time, and location of the meeting, and that there is an agenda item allowing time for public comment at the meeting.
Anything else, Larry, on that one, or just double
Let me-
checking?
yeah, let me see where I had this. So we also talked at the meeting about the recordings, and the executive committee agreed that, and we thought after this meeting, this will probably be our last recording of the meeting. So, and I encourage you, if you haven't done this, go look at the minutes that we put out versus the minutes of the other districts. We have way more information. Most of their minutes are 1 to 1.5 pages. A item where we have a motion, like this 3A and 3 for treasurer's report, wouldn't list doesn't list who made the motion, who seconded it. It's just motion, and here's the motion, passed, and that's it. A line here or there if there was comment and it needed a little clarification. So there is opportunity, if you want to do that, to really streamline all of the very detailed information that we have in here. But we decided that the first thing we'll do, then we won't have to upgrade this equipment for recording, which, if you paid attention to, if any of you looked at last month's, 2 months ago, the August recording, when Director Koth was making comments with Teams, we took the microphone and placed it right under the speaker on this computer, and it didn't pick up a thing. So if we were gonna continue to do that kind of thing, we somehow need to upgrade this system. And so it was suggested then by the executive board that we just suspend the recording process moving forward from today.
Are there any questions for the admin over the annual review of the opens meetings law?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Larry, I guess the way, when you read that, with the packet material availability, it said it needs to be on the website or available to the public at the office for 24 hours in advance. Is that what it said?
It was, packet.
I guess my point is, if that's the way it is, then you put it on your website, then you don't have to camp out at the office for 24 hours because the outside door gets locked.
Well, it's on the outside door.
But didn't it say something about supplementary material?
That is on the website.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As long as it's on the website?
Yep.
Okay,
So as long as it's on the website, the agenda is what's posted
yeah,
for people to have to see. The packet either needs to be posted on the website or made available, at least one copy at the meeting.
mhm. And on the recording, I would encourage us to keep recording. You know, that's something we've been doing since before I was here. And I do get people that listen to that, and with the Teams thing, I'm not sure how to deal with that, because we've only done cell phone remote meetings before, and that always seemed to work. So maybe people should just use their phones. But the minutes don't really tell you all the discussion that goes on, that's why the recording is nice. I thought we should consider getting what's called an OWL. The Rapid City Sustainability Committee uses one, and then you can go to their meetings every other Monday and see how that works. And that's more of a web-based thing. I think that's what Jay uses when they do their remotes.
They just use it in their meeting.
Yeah.
They do not record anything.
Right, but I mean, it has the capability of recording. It's my opinion.
So is the OWL their mechanism that shows the people that are remote and, you know, interactions? I mean, I've been to some number, and there tend to be more people participating remotely than in person, but, which is fine, but, so to me, a question would be, does that system, and it's easy enough for us to ask them, does it record both the remote participation as well as the live participation, I presume?
Yeah, Dave Holland is the president or chair, whatever. And he said if you want to see the recording, you can come down to his office. They don't post it. However, did you ever log in, Craig, to any of
No,
those meetings?
I didn't.
Okay. So they do, I don't know if it's Teams or what it is. It's one of those apps, remote apps. They record it, but like I said, they don't post it. But I don't know, when I was doing admin, that's how I made my minutes, as I listened to the meeting. So it's kind of like Groundhog Day again, you know, but it just clears up any question about what was said.
Yes.
Well, I agree with Director Mullally that, you know, there's been a number of times, including the August meeting, where I've, you know, listened to the recording, and obviously the remote stuff didn't come through. I'm not sure why, if it was on Teams, why we were needing a microphone, you know, one of those details, I guess. But, you know, to me, it's fairly painless to have, well, I guess in this case, it wasn't painless. It sounds like our system needs to be upgraded, but to me, it really does provide a service to the public to have that available if they're interested, and it's also, you know, I find it pretty useful internally.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a different view of that. I think we should stop recording. I mean, it's not required. Obviously, we're gonna have to invest quite a bit to upgrade our recording means if we're going to continue to do that. And, you know, there's also the hassle of hauling all the necessary equipment into these meetings and bringing it up from the office and tearing it down and hauling it back. State law doesn't require that we record it. It permits any reasonable person having a reasonable means that wants to go ahead and record the meeting, and I think, you know, that's what we should rely on. If interested persons wanna come and record the meeting, they can do that. If any member wants to record it on their cell phone for future use, you know, that would be permissible too. But as an ongoing requirement or policy of the board itself, I think we should stop recording.
Yeah, I guess I would just, after almost 7 years on the board now, I've not used the recording yet. Even though it's been available, I rely on the minutes, and it seems like we do a pretty good job of policing our minutes to record you know, what is occurring and what has occurred and who does the various mechanisms throughout the course of the meeting. And that's served, at least for my purposes, to jog my memory to a pretty good degree. I would agree with Director McGregor that we would probably not suffer if we ceased to record meetings going forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the,
I guess I'd add that the way we do our minutes too, we pretty much see what's gonna be in the minutes up there. There may be a wording change or two that is done later for editing, but we pretty much get a good record of our meeting right there, and we can see what's going on. I think it just behooves us all to pay attention to that, and if there's something that we see that's inaccurate, to point it out at the time.
okay. Any other comments or questions on item 7? Yes, Director.
As far as the cost of the equipment, you know, what I see in our treasurer's report, I can't imagine that cost would be an issue. I think we'd have sufficient funds to cover. I think the bigger question, you know, maybe this is something we seem to have couple one way, the couple the other. Maybe we should allow time to give it some more thought and perhaps consider it as a voting agenda item in December. If that would make sense.
Mr. Chair, too, I'd like to just mention that there's recording equipment out there that's a lot less elaborate, much more simple to operate than this. It's adequate for recording meetings. We don't need a $10,000 system to record what goes on here. I personally like the recordings because going back, all the discussion isn't always captured in minutes. And having missed August's meeting, and you know, it's nice to go back before the meeting and to hear some of that discussion.
I'll just elaborate a little bit more on the Rapid City Sustainability Committee. I think the owl is about $1,000, but you know, this does work. It's more than that. Okay, take that back. Dave Holland said, come on down, he'll show you the recordings and how they do it. I kind of like, I don't know what I think this should be a voting item, but I would like to see it at a later meeting, because I have people that do listen to these, that call me and ask questions, and the recording is part of the feedback mechanism, and I would like to get their opinion on it
Okay.
before it just disappears.
Okay. Looks like we'll look into that further for December. Okay, so.
Mr. Chairman? I think
Yes,
the executive committee made a decision on this, so, for the board to overturn that decision would, in my opinion, require a motion.
okay. Do we wanna take it now as a motion item, since it was just the annual review of the,
No, I think it fits within that. This is the category in which it arose, so we could either have a motion to cease recording, continue recording, or defer consideration to another meeting.
is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I'll move to consider this at our next meeting.
Okay,
Consider whether to continue recording meetings.
I would second that motion.
okay. Seconded by Klein. Okay, discussion on the motion?
I guess I'd say along with that, when we consider that, we ought to have some idea of what equipment we might use to record and the cost of that equipment.
Okay. Any other,
Yeah, and I'll volunteer to go down, if someone else wants to come along, visit with Dave Holland and their system, because we have different options. We can keep what's here, we could get some other equipment, or just do away with it.
okay,
This has been here since 2018, I think.
It is a breath on that control knob for volume before it goes into a squeak that run you all out of here. and it's inadequate. I'm sitting right here, and I can hardly hear anything out of this speaker. Now, it's recording fine, maybe that's all you're looking for, but the speaker's
it's-
useless. Unless you're, right here holding that microphone.
Okay,
So
well,
it's a really touchy, just right on the edge balance of as loud as it can get, and it's simply not picking up your speaking. Now I can hear, papers, I heard that, cause it's closer to the mic. So the current microphones, the way I'm looking at it, and I've worked with 16-channel soundboards before, this is pretty antiquated. So,
Any more discussion?
I think that's what led the executive committee to consider, what was really necessary, because this is basically needs to be replaced if we're gonna continue to record. It's not functioning properly anymore for the purposes we need.
now I believe, I may be wrong, but just reviewing the OWL on the website, it looks like it'd be an instrument you'd like place right there in the middle of the room, and it stands about yay high, and it's cylindrical, and apparently it has microphones all around that perimeter of that cone, and so it's omnidirectional, and I think it's that unit, and it would just pick up your voice, and I didn't see anything online on how to interact with that device to Teams or any type of somebody, attending from off-site. I don't know how that's done.
well,
The owl serves as basically a Zoom camera, except it's directional. When you speak, it focuses on you with the camera, so that on your Zoom screen or meeting screen, it shows who's speaking and recording, based on that. That's one of the things they sell it as. We reviewed this, and the cost for our organization was more than we wanted to spend.
And the device records on it, it's, the
No.
recording is there?
No, the device doesn't record there. You'd be recording like to the Zoom recordings or whatever, it would be that. At least that's how it was 3 years ago. I mean, shortly after COVID. I would be in favor, and part of the reason I am for reviewing this is that I agree with you, the speaker, we should be able to pick up if someone, like Kara or Koth, or someone calls in, if you can't hear them for the public on the speaker that's broadcast, then that's depriving the public of that commentary. And so that's my point on this, is I think that less for us, more for anyone who's sitting here from the public, both people, that they can hear call-ins or anyone's doing remote board presence.
Can I make a comment?
Real quick.
Yeah, if you just get a webcam, you can just record on Zoom. You don't need the owl. I mean, if you do the recording on Zoom, we do it all the time, where it records everyone that's calling in. You don't need to hold any microphones. You wouldn't need that anymore. It's just something.
and if you did want to use the owl, I talked to Luzanne Zeller about this. She said they have external microphone input, so this kind of started that speaker with Dan Bjerke didn't have a very loud voice. So just a bit of history there, kind of like me.
Okay.
And just one more comment, and we use the Zoom camera and everything in our board meetings and stuff. The limitation there is it doesn't record the individual who's speaking or identify them. I know there's a way to do that, but normally whoever sets up the meeting, when there's a comment made on a Zoom camera, in your recordings or minutes that are transcribed, it records whoever set the meeting up, so it would always be Larry said, Larry said, Larry said. And that's a limitation, I think, for our board that we should consider.
Okay. So,
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, no problem.
so the motion on the floor, made by Mullally, seconded by Klein, is to consider the continuation of recording at the December meeting and review of equipment and costs. All those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passed. Item 8. Discussion, establish point of contact at West Dakota for 319 grant with duties of grant administration, proposal preparation and solicitation, contractor solicitation, etc. That looks like you, Director Coe.
Well, at our last executive committee, we're getting some more feedback through Thomas that we're approaching the time when we're gonna have a contract with, the DANR on this 319 grant that was approved, in the early part of the year. So we're not quite there, but we're probably getting close. There's apparently the last piece of information they needed from us was one of these government numbers, a SAM number, and that's been provided. And so now the DANR legal team has that. And so without too much further ado, we're gonna end up with a contract. At that point in time, we're gonna, I guess, learn from the DEANR, you know, and the EPA both about how we get to proceed. But the way that we generally understand this to roll out is that in our initial application that was approved by DANR, EPA, and the non-point source task force, we have a few items that are action items, you know, right off the bat. A couple of those important ones would be the preparation of two REACH-specific protection plans for Rapid Creek. So what that's gonna involve at the minimum is we're gonna have to look for appropriate contractors to help us complete those protection plans, whether they be local or whether they be, you know, someplace else that have some experience. We're gonna need to develop more than likely a statement of qualifications or some kind of an RFP so that we can get those initial protection plans underway. And that's gonna involve a considerable amount of back and forth between West Dakota and these potential vendors or future contractors. So it's just sort of something I wanted to be bringing forward. It's probably a little bit early, but by December, it may be something we need to take action on. And my thought is that we potentially could take advantage of our current administrator, you know, as that point of contact initially for 319. We do have some money in our budget. At one time, there was some thought that, you know, there'd be some soft match in there, maybe by volunteer directors, but the more, I guess, I've thought about it anyway, and we can all think about it as we think about something for December, is that it might be much more efficient and direct, especially as we deal with these solicitations for potential contractors, that we, and for even the 319 itself as we go forward with project partners, is to have a point of contact that's a contract employee, so that we don't have any question about who's being contacted, and then that person, because they are a contract employee, as our administrator, would be responsible to the board, you know, for distribution of materials as necessary. So it's not an action item, it's just something I wanted us to begin thinking about. And maybe it would be potentially an action item for December, depending upon when we are presented with a contract to sign for 319. Although that may require a board review of the contract as well. So we've got a few months probably before we're actually underway on that project. So just a thought to go forward with. Something I've been thinking
Where is our
about.
319 proposal at now?
Still,
It's,
well,
go ahead.
still pending legal. They asked for the SAM number last Tuesday. I got that to them on Thursday, and they said they're still in the lawyering and the contracting, and we haven't seen anything. And I've been asking about once a week, like, hey, you guys got anything? And they keep on saying it's with the lawyers, and that's all I know.
You mentioned something about some design plans also that are gonna be,
Oh, there's two other items, well, there's a number of other items that were approved in there.
okay,
Some of them were, I guess I'll call it boilerplate 319 things where we can work with people on riparian buffers, et cetera, but there's also two other specific items in there that we'll have to figure out how we're gonna solicit for help on. And those are probably something that we're gonna need to have collaborators on. One of them was for a stabilization design for the Star Village slope, and the other one was for a process-based restoration project on several thousand feet of Rapid Creek immediately below Pactola Dam. Those two are, in my mind, a little bit different than the two protection projects. Those projects on specific locations, I think we're for sure gonna need collaborators on. They're gonna need to bring, something to the table where we have agreed upon approaches, and because we're working on, we're actually working on a project on a specific location. It is controlled by others, not the board. We're gonna need assistance from them and probably some contractual arrangements. The two protection plans are really precursors to doing work on many of the streams in the Rapid Creek watershed that are not impaired according to South Dakota statute. That is we can do some planning, but we really can't do any work until we have these protection plans in place. And so to me, the protection plans are something that the board will probably seek to do as an effort that the board puts forward. And part of the effort that will more than likely take place, as I see it in my own mind, is in the preparation of those protection plans, we're gonna be reaching out and generating a lot of activity with others who are interested in Rapid Creek as they bring to the table their particular considerations about, what's going on and what's important. And it'll be a good jumping off point for what will be the future of a 319 group, other than the board, who would maybe drive a Rapid Creek watershed protection plan, similar to how other 319 projects are done throughout the state. So early on, we're gonna be in the midst of it pretty thick, and then I think as time goes on, there may be another organization that really is catalyzed out of some of this work that will take over in the big picture for 319. Similar to what goes on at the Belfouche watershed project, for example, for one of the close ones, which has been in place for a dozen years or so now.
No other discussion? Oh, yep.
I'm sure at some point in time we'll have a contract in place, and it may be very useful for us to invite, the DANR contact is Chris Dozark. Invite him to our December meeting. The watershed protection plan, there aren't many of them out there. They're kind of an uncommon thing. They don't really have hands-on experience with them, and it's not clear to me if that's something that we would basically put out a request for proposals for somebody to prepare them. Certainly it will involve discussions with stakeholders in terms of what are the things that can be done, or in terms of protecting a watershed. But how you'd go about this is certainly a bit of a black box. We're gonna have considerable learning curve here, and I suspect they might have one also. I don't think they've been involved with a watershed protection plan, internally, is my impression.
Speaking to that, Dan, in the latest comprehensive plan that the city's put together, they're starting to talk about a Rapid Creek protection plan. And I believe that Lisanne Zeller will probably be at the tiller there. And then additionally, I know that there's a number of local groups, including the U.S. Forest Service and conservation partners, who are working to build up a watershed protection plan. I will have more information in December about that, but there are players like the Nature Conservancy, the Black Hills Fly Fishers, U.S. Forest Service, and others are working to actually get a full-time person to work on protecting the watershed, and then bring groups together collaboratively. So,
Interesting.
yeah, we're not working in
Right.
right now we're working in silos, and we need to tear some of those down.
One more thing that I've heard and I'm not just exactly sure where I heard it, but I do think that the DANR right now is involved, or maybe they're not, but the city of Spearfish, as I understand it, is working on a watershed protection plan, kind of like what we would be doing with a local engineering firm, HDR. So, and I think the contact there is probably Corey Foreman. But so I think there is some beginning of some of this stuff that we're gonna be faced with doing, beginning to occur here in our region. Which is good.
Is there a timeline on coming up with that water protection plan based upon the grant for the 319?
Well, again, this is my interpretation of it, and we need to have those folks over there tell us if, you know, our collective vision of what is happening, or if we're off base somehow, but that's in our, what they called our first segment. And so that runs for basically a year.
Yeah,
And before we can actually do any construction work, we can do planning,
right.
but we can't actually put anything on the ground until we complete these protection plans, because many of the creeks, which is really a good thing, in the Rapid Creek watershed are not impaired by the standards that the DANR uses. For example, a lot of the stream in Rapid City or below Pactola or whatever have been, you know, adversely impacted by what EPA characterizes as a category called hydromodification, which encompasses, you know, dams, human-caused things, you know, all kinds of physical perturbations to the stream. DANR in South Dakota doesn't recognize that, but in many states, that is a recognized impairment. And so 319 money is regularly funneled into that kind of a project. But because of just the specifics of our state, we have to do a protection plan for where we might want to do work related to hydromodification, or really anywhere else where we'd use 319 money on an unimpaired via South Dakota standards stream reach. So it's sort of the precursor
Right,
before we
Okay.
really get to do a lot of stuff.
okay,
Now, if we're working downstream below Farmingdale, for example, where there's E. coli and suspended sediment, that's impaired.
right.
So immediately, we could do work down there without a protection plan, for example.
Okay.
One correction, Ron, you'd said that segment one is a 1-year time frame. It's a 3-year time frame.
Oh, you're right, sorry.
Right, so, and there's flexibility there. If we haven't completed these things, we can always request an extension. If we get them done early, we can go in there and say, well, we're now getting done and we're ready for another segment. So for planning purposes, it's a 3-year plan.
So we can work with the groups that are working, that Bill mentioned with the city on this watershed, so we're not all coming up with separate plans.
That would be a pretty
Yeah.
desirable thing, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is Bill your point man, maybe?
Okay, hearing no more discussion, we'll move to item 9, discussion updates and changes to West Dakota Water Development District proposal and contracting process.
And I think this is sort of an adjunct to the discussion we just had as we begin to get pretty close to entering into the 319 project. I think we're gonna need to review our current proposal / contracting process, because it is different under 319, where there are proposals and then they're approved and then there's a contract. And so again, I think it's just something that we need to be thinking about going forward, particularly as we begin to get more of a reality, you know, and having a 319 project under our umbrella. There's nothing specific about it at this point in time, but, you know, the current way that we've done things, where we have a proposal and it's sort of supposed to have some stuff in it, and it might not, or it might, depending upon the day that it comes in. I think that kind of is gonna be a thing of the past as we get into 319, and there are gonna be specific elements in there. For example, one of the ones that I was reading about in particular is that there needs to be a quantification, or at least an effort at quantification of the benefit, you know, of a project that would be funded under 319. So instead of just saying, you know, erosion is bad, we'd have to say, this site, you know, is gonna be remediated in such a way, and we're gonna expect to see some anticipated to the level of some estimate of sediment yield reduction to a stream, for example. And there are many ways to estimate, you know, sediment yield reduction. Now, some of them are much more onerous than others, but that's one that I think will change as we enter into the 319 stuff. And so I just wanted to, again, put that out there as something that we're gonna probably need to deal with here in the next few months as we get into a 319 program is a review and revision, I guess, of the current way that we do some of our business, really, that we would house under 319. Some of the other stuff where someone comes in for a grant to do, I don't know what we've given grants for, I can't remember, you know, a water system, that would be different. And we wouldn't have that under 319. So then that wouldn't be necessarily a big revision that we'd need to do. But for those that are gonna be housed under 319, we'll probably have to make some tweaks.
Yes.
So Director Koth, we have that document now.
I know.
Are you saying expand that to encompass what we would need for 319 or have a completely different
Again, I think that's,
approach?
it's gonna have to have some help from the 319 people, cause they're the ones that are gonna be initially reviewing what comes into them, you know, as far as proposals to, you know, bring forward. So that's, I think a lot of the content will be driven by what's required, but I suspect that at least what I've read, we're gonna need to revise, the way that we, you know, ask for information or put information forward in collaboration with a potential partner for DA&R, you know, to meet their requirements. So I think it could be a different document entirely for purpose of 319, because they go through, as I understand it, a two-phase process. They have a proposal, just like we did, you know, and then the proposal was approved, and now we're in the contracting phase. So there's always, you know, stuff that comes along with, you know, any kind of a money source. And so I think that's something we'll eventually be, or sooner than later, be faced with. And I just wanted to, because I had this other item I wanted to bring forward. I thought this was an important one just to kind of throw out there, because I think we'll be faced with it sooner than later, and it's just gonna be part of the deal.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Any other discussion?
It's probably appropriate, since we're on the 319 topic, to make mention of a meeting next week, so the rest of the board is aware.
Okay.
I guess we have an invitation, that's we, the 319 committee from Game Fish and Parks, to talk with them. You know, they've been working on a project with the fly fishers, you know, below Pactola, and so, you know, they're aware of our 319 project and have invited us to join with them, and I'm not sure how many different stakeholders and compare notes on, you know, what's coming down the tube. So that is Tuesday or that's Wednesday of next week at 1 o'clock at the outdoor campus, and I expect, you know, probably, I assume you'll be there,
I will.
Bill and Ron and myself and Thomas. So we'll have a quorum. You know, we're probably, you know, not able to entertain other directors, I would suspect, but.
I think there's some possibility that there might be an internal 319 committee meeting before we go to that meeting on Wednesday, if we can get it figured out. I wanna make sure that, at least from my perspective, we avoid any kind of confusion that could occur on messages being given to that group.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. Moving on to item 10, information, a report from the Erosion Control Committee, that is Director Driscoll.
Okay, I've got a little list with several items. First, Roy did come up with a first cut on a ranking system to help evaluate potential erosion control projects, that came out several weeks ago to the committee, and, you know, I haven't had time to give it any consideration yet. I don't know about others, but do you wanna comment any on it, Roy? It's been
Sure.
alluded to before.
Sure. Well, I gave out the first cut. Since then, I've expanded it some more. The first cut, you know, we dealt with, kind of a ranking from distance from receiving waters, in storm inlets, talked about buffer strips. Currently expanding how to quantify erosional soil loss, so we can include that. Some other factors that I'm looking at is what type of vegetation we have within the buffer strips, whether it's native or non-native, which does make a difference. As far as the erosional stuff, what I'm looking at, and it's been used by a lot of entities that are doing stormwater protection, is using the Russell equation out of USDA to quantify their sediment loads. So it's in the works and it's coming together, so.
So I guess at this point in time, we don't need to dig too deep into the previous version,
No,
which wasn't gonna happen anyhow soon from my standpoint. Any questions for Roy?
Just one. Are you looking at some of the stuff that the DANR has as far as the criteria that they expect for like the 319?
I will. I mean, I've, you know, since I've been involved with 319s before, I've got kind of a working knowledge of it.
Mhm.
But I'll go back through and look at what, you know, if they've changed it,
Mhm.
since I haven't done one for probably 5-6 years, so.
Because I know a lot of those elements are part of their criteria.
Right, in which they basically have taken that from, NRCS.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Well, I guess I was just wondering, you mentioned distance from stormwater inlets or something.
Sure.
How is that a factor if something is channeled 1,000 feet or 10 feet and it still ends up in the same place?
Well, but then it also depends on, you've got, you know, which it'll be included, what type of inlets are on that storm sewer. Because a different type of inlets has a different capacity of capturing water. So you may have some sediment that overflows and settles out within the gutters. So,
Okay, I guess I'll learn as we go along here, thank you.
okay.
Any other questions or comments for Roy?
So continuing on, at our August meeting, you know, the Parks Department was here and, you know, kind of thanks to Bill for nudging them a little bit as far as what kind of capabilities they might have. You know, we agreed to defer action on that so that we could talk more about, you know, they'd indicated they might be able to step up their level of assistance, so arranged for a meeting. Chairman Mack was able to attend with me, and we kind of come up with preliminary plans on, you know, kind of a major activity that would demonstrate what we're really looking for, and that would involve, you know, it was alluded to something on the order of a couple hundred cubic yards of topsoil at the executive golf course, and, you know, we're trying to plan as to whether they would be able to do all of the hauling for us to get that to some amount to Star Village and then some to our LaCroix project, and then, you know, West Dakota would take care of the, you know, spreading it. So, that's kind of a thought process we're working on, and, you know, I'm thinking that by December we should be able to, you know, have a plan in place on that. You at the meeting, Chairman, anything you wanna add to that?
No, not at this time. They seem very interested in moving that dirt away from the executive and having Dan use it for the two projects mentioned.
We kinda talked about two scenarios. We could move it, they could spread it, they could move it, we could spread it, and logistically, for them to move it and us to spread it, seems like a good plan, and we'll see if that comes into place. If no questions on that, several meetings ago at our erosion control meetings, I had mentioned to the group that some years ago we had talked with the National Guard about potentially doing a project out there, and there'd been a couple of efforts to try to coordinate something, and they always sort of just went to a back burner. I'd said I really think if we could come up with the right contact, maybe something could happen, and this could be a major project, and one where, instead of us being a lead on a project, the National Guard could be the lead on a project, and it turns out Director Klein said, well, I happen to know Major Domagal, who's on your board of directors at the Club for Boys, and he kind of works in that arena, and maybe we could talk with him. And so he put us in touch, and sure enough, he is the person. And so I'd arranged for a meeting, actually ended up with two of them. We met out at their West Camp Rapid, as it's called. Oftentimes we think of it as their shooting range, but the west side of 44th that transitions to Hillsview is, kind of a nasty area. And they said, yeah, there certainly could be possibilities on that where, their process is basically they would apply internally for funding to do that, and if funded, we probably wouldn't contribute anything other than having been the spark plug. If they don't get enough funding, well, then maybe they could come to us for assistance. So it's on the table for future discussion. They also indicated that they might be able to assist through what they call their IRT program, Innovative Readiness Training, where they would use Guard equipment to help with a project. So I arranged for another meeting. We met at Star Village just so they could see what we're doing there, and that being owned by the city, it's basically something that's viable. You wouldn't try to do a project like this on private property, although they said if there's some private property involved, a minor amount, that might be possible. They'd have to work that out. Another good candidate could be the School of Mines. We've got a small project that we approved with them for some very small areas, but there's much larger and more difficult erosive areas, and they said we hadn't gone and looked at that, but they said that would be a very good candidate. So if something like that would happen, basically it would really require, let's use the School of Mines as an example, for them to submit an application through this process, and that application, might indicate there could be involvement, with West Dakota. In terms of the National Guard, heavy equipment operators, moving the dirt, spreading it, things would stop there. The end of getting it seeded and blanket and wattles, whatever other measures, would have to be done in another fashion. So we managed to have that meeting the 2 days before the government shutdown started, just in case it went into shutdown. It looked like it was gonna, so it was timely, and there'll be no additional discussions until business resumes there. But it sounds like a good prognosis. Any questions on that one? I had an inquiry from Roger Heacock. Some of you may know him. He's been a volunteer for us on some of our projects. He's now current president for the Morning Rotary Club, and he asked me, he said there's a program came into their pipeline to try to help to do a volunteer project for Earth Day to help achieve water quality improvement. So he says any of this stuff, you know, he's volunteered with, could we come up with something where we could use some volunteers? And one of the catches would be some of it might be a little too rigorous for some of the potential volunteers. And he said he was also gonna check with the fly fishers, maybe something as simple as a stream cleanup. So did you folks hear from him?
We have.
So,
In fact, I don't know if we heard directly from him, but we have been in touch with the Rotary.
right, so, I guess I bring that up mainly because, you know, this work we're doing, people notice it. We're kind of, change is slow, but, you know, I think we're helping to change the mindset just a little. Our committee talked about, so we approved, a liability waiver at our last meeting. Our committee has actually worked on a very short document, kind of a safety guidelines, you know, if somebody's helping with these projects, what to be careful of, gloves, boots, sun protection, poison ivy, et cetera, and, you know, I think it would be useful, I didn't think to include it today, but, basically, you know, not attach it, but just add a box to our liability waiver that would indicate that they had been given and read that document. So I guess one question would be, do we need to vote on something like that, or can we just forge ahead with that?
I would say that the liability waiver is the actual waiver, and you're just stating that they acknowledge that they have signed the waiver. Is that the box?
No, when they sign the waiver, there would be we would add one line that says they have been given and read a copy of this safety guidance document, which is about 2/3 of a sheet. And we've worked it through the committee, I guess, between Craig and Roy and Mark. You've seen the document, correct? So,
I would say I can't really make a determination until I actually see what the document states. Like, in theory, it would be fine, but I think actually seeing what the actual
Right.
wording is before I sign off on it, or if it goes to.
I'll email it.
Okay, and we can take a look at it.
Yeah.
And I would just ask that, like, you know, it's a liability document. In some cases, it's better to be more vague than specific. And that the omission, you know, if we have a generality that cover all these things, we still provide our document to people, but I'm not sure if that weakens the liability document or not. That would be my only concern. I'd have to be a lawyer to speak in on that.
Well, I'll just email it to the entire board, and it could be done in 3 ways. We would not have to have a safety guidance document. We could include it, you know, a line on the waiver that says they've been given it and read it. Or you can just hand it to them and say, this is safety considerations to be aware of. It's basically another CYA sort of mechanism to say that, you know, people have been warned that, you know, there are potential, you know, dangers out here when you volunteer.
I would say before any statement from the chair would like to see
Yeah.
it and fully read it.
Yeah, I'll email it to everybody so that everybody can feel free to comment.
Yes.
So a question, Director Driscoll, is this the document we voted on already?
We voted on the liability waiver,
So
that-
you're
and it's
thinking
been
of
approved.
adding a checkbox to that?
Well, basically, would just, not a checkbox, but just add one line that says, I have been given and read a copy of West Dakota's safety guideline. And if it's, you know, we could certainly vote on it later if we need to, you know, in the near term. I don't know if, you know, if we try to do we will be probably doing some fall work here. You know, we can go just strictly with the liability waiver and, you know, leave it at that. There's no urgency on this.
At our field camps at School of Mines, we had the liability waiver, and we had that exact thing. There was the safety guidelines, you know, proper field procedures, safety in the field, that we not only required them to read it, but we went through highlights, kinda like I, you know, did with this public meeting law, and then they signed. So if anything happened, we could say, hey, you know, you're fully aware that was a no-no, or whatever the case may be.
Larry, did you have a spot on the, what liability waiver for them to check off? They received that material then? Is that
We
what you're
actually
saying?
we had the liability waiver they signed. And we also had the safety guidelines that they had to sign off on as
Okay,
well.
so it was a secondary thing they
Two
signed off
documents they had to sign
on. Okay,
before they were allowed in the field. But for the purposes here, a line like that on the waiver would suffice.
It doesn't hurt to say that we've addressed the fact that there are potential and when you're signing a waiver, that kinda goes without saying, but, you know, to specifically identify. So I will email that. And one final item, we have made arrangements that, the National Guard will assist us, several weeks farther down the line when the leaves really fly to help us in spreading leaf bags, combination between additional touch-up work at LaCroix. You know, we hit it pretty hard last year. Things really grew in there. It really helped, and you know, they don't last forever. And then several areas around Star Village where the partial vegetation, you know, it's useless in places just total bare shale, but we've got a lot of areas with partial vegetation and stuff. You give it a little bit of you know, basically a seed bed there, and things start growing. So, you know, I'll probably get out an email at some point in time, seeing if people want to help gather leaves, you know, come up with a plan on that. You know, basically, I've got to have leaves lined up ahead of time. You know, last year, you know, Craig had helped me a fair amount with this. We spread about 750 bags at LaCroix and about that many at Star Village, and coming up with an efficient way to collect them streamlines things, so.
And when you look at them, it rings a bell.
And anything else that any of the other committee members want to add?
just, when do you think we'll need those leaves? 'Cause I'm starting to mulch them now, so.
Well, I'll have more information when it gets a little closer, you know. Basically, it needs to be kinda in the peak of leaf season, and the way the guard will work, you know, there would be one day, you know, during the week, you know, and you wouldn't wanna do a Monday or a Friday, probably you'd say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and, you know, I need kind of a week before that to gather leaves, and, you know, we do some combination of, you know, grab them from the dumpsters at Fitzgerald Stadium or the landfill. The easiest ones are if we spot them in the neighborhoods. You know, sometimes you go by a place and there's 40 of them there, and you know, you drive up there and you load them up. You know, that's the simplest.
Hey, you, yeah.
Well, a lot of times you knock on the door, and most of the time there's nobody there. I've yet to have somebody come along and say, "What the heck are you doing with my leaf bags?"
Leaf thieves.
I just wanna know, I'll start saving those and. I'll
And
take
a lot of it's if you know, you know, once we get there, if you know neighbors, say, hey, this is coming down. But everyone, once you get your leaves, you gotta go get rid of them. You're not gonna leave them lay around for
Right.
weeks on end. You know, you get them bagged up and you go, so.
Okay,
Okay, and that was the last time.
That was my last item, unless any of the other committee members.
Item 11, approval of a proposed bylaws. So as you can see on page 13, there is a requested bylaw change. And so it had been notified, and it had been, actually, this is Director Kerr as the secretary. Do you want to speak to the bylaw change, or you want me to continue?
I guess all I did was circulate the bylaw change so that the members can see it as required by the bylaws, so.
So as you can see, it is on page 13 and 14 for the bylaw. Is there a formal motion for the bylaw change?
I will move to implement the proposed bylaw change.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mullally, open for discussion.
I'll give just a quick background since I kind of spawned this thing, you know, to a large extent. formalizes what we do in that, to put an item on the agenda, you know, if John Q. Public comes in, happened to show up at our meeting today and said, well, I've got an agenda item for you. Well, you can speak during your items, you know, from the public, but in order to put something on an agenda, it essentially has to be sponsored by a director. And that's probably been something on the order of 10 years ago, perhaps, that West Dakota started doing this. You know, maybe you'd know, Dan, but it didn't always used to be that way.
It was that way since I've been here,
It,
2018.
so it just kinda started working that way, but it's not identified, and so, to me, it makes sense to say that's how it works, and then to specify that the meeting agendas, you know, Dan Mullally had added the first line would be at the bottom of 13, that should be in compliance with, you know, open meeting or the guidance for conducting, and that the, you know, executive committee, you know, basically reviews these things, sets the order of the meeting, and if they see fit, they would be allowed to, you know, suggest to a director, well, maybe it's best that we wait till a subsequent meeting. So, that's the background on it.
Any other discussion on the proposed bylaw?
I just, the wording on section 3 that's highlighted in red, that, first of all, too specific for my feelings to mention Larry in there, and I don't think this is well written. You know, it should be definitive in its nature, and I think this one right now leaves it kind of open. I think that the first section is well written, and oh, okay. Well then, I take that back. I thought this was considered.
You're on the discussion item,
Yeah,
not the
I was
voting
already-
item.
I went past into the red, I thought, okay, that should be,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
I
that other one's a
apologize
little bit
for that
vague.
time.
Director?
Well, this is in the one that's, for the one that's under consideration, that begins on page 13 and goes over to page 14. We had quite a long discussion about this at the executive committee meeting, and from my takeaway, the specificity, you know, of following the open meeting laws along with the other standard items there, it's not necessary to have it prescribed that we meet, we have to meet under the guidance of the rules of the South Dakota Open Meetings Law, because that's basically how it is in statute. I mean, that's very redundant. The other thing is that, in that particular paragraph, it identifies all the things that we're gonna have in the agenda, and it really is very, you know, in a bylaw format, I don't think we wanna have that kind of specificity. If we wanna have other things that might be on the agenda that weren't included, that could create some confusion. I don't know exactly what those might be right now, but it doesn't seem like it's a very wise move to enshrine that particular order of the agenda in a bylaw. The second paragraph, as I understood some of the things that our administrator told us as we were going through the open meeting laws, you know, and how the boards work, this is actually contrary to how boards are operated in South Dakota. The governing body, which they define as the executive committee, has a great deal of control of what is or is not on the agenda. It is not at the behest of an individual director or even the overall board. It's basically the executive committee. So this particular paragraph flies in the face of the guidance that comes to boards and commissions under the South Dakota Open Meetings Law, as I understand how it was explained to us. So it is not anything that we can even act on. And on the other hand, it isn't a wise idea to have a single director be responsible for what comes before the board as a whole.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Ron's comments and add that I think, one, when you consider any bylaw, that's something we have to comply with. So to the extent we approve a bylaw that limits our flexibility on on the content of that bylaw, and for that reason, I would be opposed to the first paragraph here. And it's also, as Ron mentioned, fully taken care of by the open meeting laws provisions on how we establish agendas. And the particular items on an agenda are always subject to our approval when we have the meeting. That's why we approve the agenda. And we have the authority under the open meeting law to either add or delete items on an agenda before we commence our meeting. So from that standpoint, I don't think the second paragraph is necessary, and I certainly don't think we need a bylaw that says we're gonna comply with state law.
Any other comments?
I'm just wondering if seems like the way we're doing this, we'll never be able to amend this thing because we require, how many days, 21 days notification? I thought the idea was we would go send emails back and forth and kind of get something we thought was close and then vote on it. It sounds like the discussion is always ending up at these meetings and then we put it off, so I'm not even taking a stand on this amendment right now, but just the way we're going about it.
Okay, any other comments?
Unfortunately, I think
Oh, go
that way about going about it, if we were to do that, sending emails, back and forth until we settle on something, that exchange of emails amongst everybody on the board would constitute an open meeting, which creates a whole bunch of other problems.
Yeah.
Right.
That'll work.
If I could just clarify on this agenda items from the same brochure, says proposed agendas for public meetings must be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Okay, we know that. And the purpose of this advanced notice of the topics to be discussed at a meeting is to provide information to interested members of the public concerning the governing body's anticipated business. Okay, they say the public body, again, which is the elected directors, adopts the final agenda upon convening the meeting, and that's what we do. That's item number, after the roll call. I think we do the agenda. Okay, at the time the final agenda is adopted, the governing body, which is the executive committee, may add or delete agenda items and may also change the order of business. And that's after, so the proposed agenda is approved by everybody, and then the governing body can add or delete agenda items and change the order of business. New items cannot be added after the agenda has been adopted by the governing body. So the way that we're doing it now, that is essentially what happens at the executive committee when the agenda has been adopted by the governing body. And the main purpose is, again, is that somebody can't misuse this rule to say, okay, I know somebody in the public is against this item, but they can't come this meeting. So at the meeting, somebody says, I'd like to add this agenda item. Well, there's no public notice, there's no anything to the people, and the purpose of the agenda is to provide information to interested members of the public concerning the governing body's anticipated business. So that's what's in this brochure.
Well, it's on my mind, Director McGregor's comment. I think the way I did it before, I only responded to the person proposing the amendment, so I don't think there was any open meeting problem there. So just throw that in there.
Any other discussion or comments on the item?
Yeah, I'll need to look at specific wording in that open meetings law. I had looked at it pretty carefully before, and I thought that it says that items can be added at the meeting under whatever circumstances, but
It does.
that aside, I see no point well, I'm gonna withdraw this motion, I don't see any point in we should have this or we shouldn't that, you know, it had been floated around many times for comment, and there's been no comment until it comes down to voting on it, and I guess, you know, maybe we'll come up with, some sort of a committee to decide where we might wanna go. The part of the background, the executive committee, you know, we did a bylaw change here some part of a year ago that actually defined what is the executive committee. Before it referred to it, but it didn't say who is it, you know. So some of these things, you know, I think it is important to state that, you know, in order to have something on an agenda, it has to be sponsored by a director. You know, it's been our way of doing business, but nowhere in our bylaws does it say that. It's just kind of out of habit. So, you know, I guess I'll just withdraw the motion and ask if there is anybody that would wanna, you know, work on finding some wording that could tidy things up. You know, it sounds like there's unilateral agreement that we don't need to state that we're gonna follow the state law. You know, like, we need to do that. I'm comfortable with that, you know, so.
Okay, so does the second agree with withdrawing the motion? Okay.
Yes.
If there is no other discussion, we can move on to item 12, discussion of program administration duties.
Before we do that, you know, is there anyone that would wanna help work on some wording?
Yeah, I
Would
will.
you, Scott, and how about you, Mr. Mullally? You-
Sure.
Anybody else that'd like to be in the mix?
So item 12, as you can see, this is now on page 15 and page 16. That is the red that we are looking at now, just to make sure not to be confused what was on 13 and 14. And so,
I know, appreciate that.
and it looks like that is you, Director Driscoll. Do you want to speak to it?
Right, so it's just for discussion that, at our last meeting, Director Young had asked that on our, was it in our bylaws, there was actually in the one that we had intended to vote on, that basically in specifying what would be a regular agenda items, one of them was items from admin. And he said, well, let's spell that out, that it be items from the program administrator. Fine, that's a good idea. Well, in looking at the bylaws, the program administrator is referred to several times, but it never says, well, what is a program administrator? You know, and when we send out a solicit, you know, when we made the transition from, you know, to Larry here, you know, there was a request for proposals that specifies all of the duties, and I think we can keep things a lot briefer than that. But, you know, it seems to me that it could be a good thing to, you know, do a couple of basic things that say, this is where the program administrator fits in. It just, to me, the bylaws, to be referring to a program administrator and it doesn't really say what it is, just needs a little tidying.
Mr. Chairman, my attitude on this one, or my view on this one rather, I don't have a problem with the first sentence, which to me distinguishes the fact that we will hire a program administrator on a contractual basis rather than as an employee of the district. The rest of it, the second sentence basically says the program administrator is gonna comply with his contract, which seems rather obvious on that. And as far as specific duties, I think that would be a more appropriate statement for inclusion in our policies rather than the bylaws.
And I believe there is in the policies what the duties.
Yeah, so I don't know that we need to extend to, you know, reiterate it in the bylaws. Now, at the previous meeting, when we were considering bylaw changes, and I attempted to move to amend the bylaw we were considering, the board took the position that we can't do that, because that would violate the open meeting law. I don't see why it does. In the review that we just had on open meeting laws, I think that, as long as we've noticed the item, being the amendment of the bylaw, we can make whatever change to a specific language we want. I don't know if this is intended as an action item or just information for this meeting.
I just threw it out there that I think this is something that we should work towards, that we should, if we're gonna refer to the program administrator without, what is a program administrator? So I just threw in a
Why don't
straw man.
Why don't you and I and
wording.
Dan just take a look at this one, as long
Right.
as we're gonna look at the other one then.
Now, in your purview, Scott, Director McGregor, if we had two people working, would we need more information, or is just program administrators fine? Because before Director Mullally, when he was admin Mullally or program administration Mullally, there was like 3 people that did Larry's job, and they all kind of rotated in the office.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering if we put it in the bylaws as program administrator, could we hire more than one person, or how would that play out? I'm just curious. It's just something in my head. So like I haven't thought.
If we use this language, in my view, we would hire one.
Okay.
If we said language that we shall be administered by one or more persons who shall serve as program administrators, then we could hire more than one on a contractual basis to do these administrative duties.
Because that would be my concern is if, let's say 319 got bigger and we have.
Yeah, and if Larry says, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, and we
Right.
need to hire somebody else. I don't want to be like locked in, well,
Yeah.
we have to make
It
a
it
special
depends on the
name.
language, depends on the language you use. I mean, a program administrator is one, one or more persons to serve as program administrators gives you more flexibility.
Or if that happens, you change the bylaws or policies.
But then that becomes the big ask is it?
Or you
that
change the
important that-
contract and meet Larry's requirements to be paid more if he's gonna do that.
Right.
But that would be my question is like, I understand the intent and I get the idea of this bylaw, but my concern is if we get bigger, instead of coming in to change the bylaw every time, something changes, would it just be best to maybe have it in policy or look at it kind of bigger picture? Now, we might not all be here by the time that actually happens, but I don't wanna hamstring a future board for something that.
To me, it would be best not to put this in a bylaw at all, but,
Okay.
which is why I say if we're gonna do it, I'd limit it just to the first sentence, but even that limits your flexibility between employee and contractual hire, and what you wanna do.
I can understand why it's confusing when you have a reference to a program administrator and you don't know what that is. So, that probably has to be dealt with somehow, but when I talked to Jay Gilbertson about this, he said his role isn't even mentioned in the bylaws or policies.
Yeah.
And he's the executive director. He's an is he an employee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an employee of the district. His district, they hire a number of employees, I think
Yeah,
they've
they've
got
got
6 or
about
7
7.
that do these things,
But it seems like it's getting a little too cluttered, our policies and bylaws.
I've never really understood why we have bylaws and then a separate set of policies. It doesn't really make much sense to
So
me.
anyway, I'll help.
Well, the
Especially-
policy document is very long and there's a lot of wording in there that has absolutely no relevance to, what we ever do, employees.
Well,
And, it's
Yeah, but,
it's boilerplate that came from somewhere else and,
keep in mind, the more we do stuff like that, the more we open ourselves up to trouble if we don't
Don't do it.
strictly comply with it.
Yeah.
So,
Like-
in my view, less is more.
Our policy has a lot of detail. Our policy document has what should be in the minutes, things like that. if you look at Robert's rules, we go way beyond that in our policy document.
Well, I would want to keep this as simple as possible. It just strikes me as odd that we refer to a program administrator and there's no mention of, well, what is the program administrator? And, so I guess to me it makes sense that, I guess one thing I didn't understand more than one, I mean, there's been a string of program administrators that were all contract after, back in the old war, Van Lindquist was an executive director. Well, that was a half-time job for him. He was also probably the same title for Black Hills Council, and
I kind of prefer that term, executive director.
well,
To me, you could be the program administrator of our erosion control program. Somebody else could be the program administrator of the 319, project. Somebody else could be the program administrator of, our deal with BOR,
I know the history behind that term, I won't go into it now.
well, the duties of an executive director are much different than that of a program administrator. What actually happens with Jay and, the way it had worked back then.
Well-
And then they had, there were several employees of Black Hills Council that would work for West Dakota basically on a contract basis. So, in the case of, let's say, the 319, I mean, there's plenty of scenarios, if there would be a determination it makes sense to have Larry serve those duties, that could be totally a separate contract as a 319 coordinator. Most 319 projects have a 319 coordinator, and that could be, I would not see weaving that in as part of a program administration job. I would, view that as, if you were in it, is he interested, not interested, I have no idea,
But if you and I and Dan are gonna look at this, let's move on.
Yeah,
We can,
good enough.
Sounds
we
good.
can talk about this till breakfast.
So item 13 is chair's comments. So as Director Driscoll had stated before, there is a meeting with Game Fish and Parks on October 22nd at the West Campus, outdoor campus, to discuss some of the projects that they have done, and they have some interest in hearing what 319 is doing from this. So that will happen between 1 and 3, and I'm going to attend that. I've also been in contact with the person that had scheduled that meeting just to see what they are going for, a little bit more than the agenda that was sent out. And so I'm doing some follow-up. Like Director Driscoll also said, I attended the meeting with the city with him and learned a little bit. And then I've also had another meeting with the Erosion Control Committee to better understand their process and to ask some questions that I have just for a better understanding. That happened last Thursday. And then the last item that I had done is we got a email from Chris Dozar stating that they did not have our SAM number or our unique identifier number. I was able to get that from our admin, and then I was able to forward that to him. The contract is still going through their legal team, but pretty much we have given them everything they need to complete at this time. And that's all I have. Any questions? None. Items from directors?
I have one, Chair.
Yeah.
I was not here when there was, we were asked about the conflict of interest. I do want to say I have no conflict of interest in the deal, but I do need to make sure it's on record.
Anything else from directors?
Just quick, Green Valley Sanitary doesn't seem to be going anywhere. My main source of information resigned as treasurer, so that's all I know.
Is it pretty bad with everything that's happening?
It didn't appear good, but
Okay.
I don't have the most current information.
Okay. Any
So
other
the
items?
valley will stay green with septic tank over?
Yeah.
Just a couple of quick items. We did a tour of Silver Creek in September. We had a number of state legislators along, including Scott Odenbach of Spearfish, Heather Baxter and Kurt Voigt in Rapid City, and then Kathy Rice of Bede County, looking at ways we could protect water in the Upper Rapid Creek watershed. And then every second Saturday of the month, we have creek cleanups. We had a great one this weekend. Callie Meyer of the City Council joined us. And then we had a number of other reps of various levels of city government joining us and understanding the importance of clean water and especially what we can do to help protect our creek here in town. That's all I've got.
I just have a request, while all of the board is here and the 319 committee is here, that we and the 319 committee huddle to try and figure out a time that we could get together briefly before the Game and Fish meeting next Wednesday.
Okay.
That's it.
Good. Any other comments from directors?
The item from admin reminds me the Chubb insurance is effective. We've not sent agreements for our approved projects with Cornerstone and School of Mines. You'd said you were waiting on approval on the insurance.
Yep.
So will we be getting those out?
I asked Larry to have them printed out, so I will sign them tonight. Okay. Nothing else? The items from admin.
Okay, as Director Driscoll just stated, the Chubb insurance is effective 9/1. I did not get that email until a week ago Friday. And so, they apparently had sent that on, where they sent it to, because I never received an email or a letter. And it was one of my continual contacts with the agency that was securing the insurance that contacted Chubb. Oh yeah, that's done. Didn't you get notice? He didn't know anything, so they sent the policy and everything to both of us, so with an effective date of 9/1. So, so that's there. South Dakota Assurance, then also is renewed, payment was made on 9/2. I haven't, again, from them, haven't seen an updated policy. They have not cashed our check yet either. Pennington County 2026 levy request was submitted to Pennington County, and I contacted them a week later, and they indeed received it, so that's good for that. And then just to keep you up to date on what I am doing, I'm looking at purchasing a new external backup drive. I can get a 4 terabyte external backup for Western Digital for like $160 or something like that. So pretty small, but it'll be a big update from the one that Dan always used and I'm using, which is really slow. And this one will interface with the USB 3 and just be zippity zip.
Any questions for admin?
No, I have one comment back to directors. Now that we've heard from your perspective that you're gonna sign the 2 contracts that were voted on last month for the Cornerstone Mission and the School of Mines. We're still engaged with our legal opinion on whether or not, those votes were actually valid. And so I'd like to make sure that I register, that into the record. That it was clear, even in our preliminary legal opinion from our contract attorney, that those votes were taken in violation of our bylaws. So I want to be sure that's registered in the official minutes of our organization. They were developed in violation of our bylaws, and they're being executed with a pending legal opinion yet to be finalized.
Okay, item 16, items from public.
Mr. Chairman, we could back up on that a minute.
Okay.
Maybe I'm reading this right to Ron different, but I read in here and I'm looking at his letter on page 3. It just says, I will assume that the votes were taken contrary to the bylaws. I don't think he came to that conclusion. He just said for his further analysis, he said, I will assume that they were taken contrary.
We need to have some more of a dialogue with the attorney, since that came in on the late afternoon after our executive committee meeting.
Okay.
To be
Is he
sure he's
working on more
actually-
then?
We need to ask him another question. The dialogue, the text that he put forward is based on a false premise. This board has never said in general that erosion is, control of erosion is a beneficial aspect of what we do. And that's one of his premises, so we have some ways to go on that yet.
Okay.
It's not done. And if Director Driscoll is worried about how long it takes, he just needs to look in the mirror on why it's taken so damn long.
I guess that's gonna lead to another comment. This request for legal counsel. We amended our minutes, here early on that, you know, it came up, Director Koth had suggested that maybe we should seek legal counsel regarding the question of, does West Dakota Water Development District have authorization to essentially instigate projects, be it erosion control or the one that we instigated with the Bureau of Reclamation? You know, we applied under the Water Smart program. At the next comment, then, the audio recording, which is not clear, but one of the reasons, you know, I think we need to continue with the recording. You know, the suggestion was made, as is per our revised minutes, that the legal opinion, you know, that question could be looked at by Director McGregor, and he said he could do that. So, subsequent to that, apparently, there has been authorization to seek legal counsel, and furthermore, the legal counsel regarding these allegations of bylaw violations. There's nothing in our bylaws that allows seeking of legal counsel without a vote of the board of directors. You know, I do not understand how we've in this position, and nor do I understand why was this not circulated to our board. Why is it not on our agenda? There's some real questions here as to how things like this are happening. So, you know, I guess that's my comment.
Okay, any other comments from admin, not admin, from the directors?
Well, I guess I had one. I kind of thought it was kind of a common idea that erosion control did affect water quality to a positive stance. But anyway, it just seems like erosion control might not be a good thing. That's all.
Green Valley Sanitary went through this about 6 months ago with somebody contesting the voting and whether it was done proper. They went to the Open Meetings Committee, they went to this guy went to the state's attorney. It'll turn out that the votes are valid, in my opinion, from what I've seen in these contentious issues. I do wonder how much our attorney is costing us.
Any other comments before I go to comments from, items from the public?
Gunderson, Palmer, Furman,
Okay. Items from the public?
Yes,
Thanks for
maybe you use them.
I'm representing the Black Hills Environmental Coalition today. We're having a water dinner, we're calling it, on November 6th at the Metaloosahan. And you're all invited. Here's our business cards, you pass them around. You'll notice there is not a phone number to contact. There is nobody directly to contact. So my suggestion is now, pass those on, is to go to Facebook. And I'll tell our people to be monitoring that, or they may contact you directly, but I don't know.
What meeting was this?
It's we're calling it a water dinner.
Water dinner?
We're trying to get groups in the city and community to come together and talk about water issues as a larger group. and to try to build some synergy and collaboration, et cetera.
Is that the menu water?
Sorry, what kinds of
Is
water?
that the menu water?
Yep, there'll be water there.
It's cheap.
Any other questions? I don't,
What was the date?
November sixth, I'm gonna
Time.
say 5 o'clock, more or less. The coalition will provide a main dish to be determined. And we're asking, people who attend either, depending on your name, A through N, bring a side or a salad, and N through Z, bring a dessert. And we'll provide everything else. So,
And we can
Sorry.
send out a flyer too.
Attacking a wasp here.
I don't know if that'll happen or not.
Yeah.
We're gonna be out of town next week, so.
If I get it, I'll send it to you guys.
Sure. Yeah, you'll be there.
Yep.
That's all I have.
I'm Justin Huntley, I'm the floodplain manager, MS4 coordinator for the city. I'm trying to get a project out the door that's basically our stormwater quality manual update. And as I was going through the CIP, they didn't mention you guys. I called this afternoon and left a message. Of course, nobody was there, but I thought I'd come out, and I saw when I was on the website that you guys were having a meeting, so I thought I'd come out and introduce myself. And I don't know what form. It was pretty vague in the CIP, but it did mention you guys as a possible stakeholders. I wanted to throw it out there and just see what your thoughts were, or I'm sure that CIP was written probably 5-6 years ago, so.
What is a CIP?
Capital Improvement Program. It's just basically a vehicle for city projects, so. I didn't know if you guys wanted to have any input on the stormwater quality manual, or,
So that's the ask if we wanted to have input, or you want financing to help with?
no,
Developing it?
we've got the financing.
Okay.
I'm just, basically trying to make inroads and get stakeholders together, so.
Is there any discussion on using the old Hawthorne ditch for stormwater runoff?
That probably wouldn't be part of the water quality manual. This is more like a design document / erosion control document. But I know we had talked about that.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
You made the mistake of coming to our meeting, now you're the guy we
Yeah.
go to, so, sorry about that.
I'm all for it. I mean, to be honest, reading some of the reports out there and looking at the water quality above Rapid City and below Rapid City, I think it's a lot of work to be done, and I think it's I don't know, kind of a little bit of mud in our eye. So that's
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Ron. Yeah.
Do you have access, in a usable format to the project that the board did a few years ago? It was a student project from School of Mines that worked on a number of different basins in the city that identified locations where it might be beneficial to try and implement, or there was problems, with stormwater runoff. Do you have all that?
I think I've got some of it. I can talk to Dr. Kenner, I'm sure, my old professor, so I'm sure he'll have most of that.
I don't know if Kenner was involved in that, was he?
No, he would have had no involvement. Did you ever get the files of interest from Jason Phillips?
I have sent him 2 emails in the last 2 weeks, haven't heard from him. I just found a drive, a USB drive, yesterday afternoon, that says Jason Phillips on it. And I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so I have no idea where that came from or what it is.
Yeah, that came from Jason Phillips. For his inventory project.
So that's the files we're looking for?
Well, there's 2 things. There's a final report that consolidates things. That does not contain the source GIS
Right, so
files.
maybe that's what's on this disc, it's
It
just
might
a
be, yeah,
document. So and
It could be both.
yeah, I'll check and see. And then the next, if I don't hear anything back from him by Monday, then I will draft a letter, which we said at the executive board meeting, for Chairman Mack to sign and send to him, requesting the files.
And what are these files?
There's GIS files of watershed improvement project, I'm not sure what it all entails, but.
We had funded a project, and this is probably how we might have been on there 5 to 6 years ago, about a stormwater inventory. So they looked at all the stormwater sections within town for like possible future improvement. And so the GIS files might actually provide you with at least some research into it. Because I know Director Driscoll was you were kind of.
I was involved, are you fairly new in your position, the
Right.
stormwater court? I know they had been seeking, and it took a long time to advertise, so it's been filled. So if I can get email address from you here after the meeting, I can probably email you the final report
Okay.
that we're referring to, and, you know,
Yeah, I've been going through files, I just started a couple months ago, so I've been going through files and getting us somewhat up to standards on regulations, so it's been busy, but now I'm getting to where I can start branching out, and I'm updating basically all the city's GIS stormwater, getting that ready for modeling, and that's kind of one of my fortes, so. It'll be fun.
Justin joined us at the creek cleanup, and I can attest that he's plenty trashy.
Yeah. I got a little dirty.
Anything else from the two public members? Okay. Meeting's adjourned.
Tom, we meet again on the 9th of December?
Yes.
I'll be here, hang on.